go. We have 23 people online. And this is, I guess, this evening, the invitation that I sent out was just to the people who had indicated, following on from the last webinar on the 25th, just who had indicated that they were interested in going forward themselves for getting an installation done, or just to follow the process to see how it's going to work out, and maybe at a later time to join in with that. Okay, so the idea tonight is to take it forward to that next step. We'll go into a little bit more detail about how we're going to calculate, how we can decide the kinds of installations. We're going to talk a bit about the BERs. We're going to talk a bit about, there's one aspect as well which I think needs clarification. Now, we can't have a final answer on that tonight, and that is to do with the feed-in tariff that's going to be coming in on the 1st of July. Now, the announcement, we're expecting the announcement, as in to explain how that's going to work. That should come, well, I've been told towards the end of April, which will clarify that a little bit, but I'll talk a little bit about that. And to be honest, I'm not quite sure that it's the biggest factor that needs to be taken into account when we're talking about an installation. Okay, so let's click on in. Okay, now the questions and answers, you can feel free to work it whatever way you want. Okay, now in one way I was thinking maybe I'll do the presentation first of all, and then at the end, it'll take 15-20 minutes, and then at the end we'll just do questions and answers. We'll just do the over and back like that. And the idea being in the questions and answers that, okay, I can answer directly, I can speak the answer, but if anybody else has a bit of information they want to share, that can go on the screen as well, and then that's visible to everybody else. Okay, so we'll do as much over and back as possible. All right. Okay, so yeah, the first thing I said, I remember a question came through in the last webinar, so I said I'll stick in a photograph there to get an idea of the dimensions of what these things are. So we're talking about what's in a solar PV system. Solar PV system, solar panels. We see our happy man in his dungarees. That's about the size of a panel which will produce, I would say, 350 watts. So it's like about 1.6 meters tall by 1 meter wide. That kind of a thing. Now, depending, some suppliers will supply 300 watt, 350, 250. That's not really the biggest deal, because really it's in terms of the total meter squared, which is going to define the amount of power you're going to get. So like a 3 kilowatt installation may need 10 panels, it may need 12 panels, you may be able to do it with 8 panels. Different installers or different suppliers will have different features there. When I'm talking tonight, I'm going to be using the 3 kilowatt system as kind of the baseline. Now, we will see that quite a few people are interested in slightly larger systems, in 4 kilowatt systems, and actually more people are not quite sure yet about the size of their system. But in terms of the roof space that's needed, a 3 kilowatt system will take up about 20 meters squared. It's between 5 and 6 meters squared per kilowatt installed. Now, as you said before, kilowatt, I explained this the last time, the kilowatt installed means if you have a 3 kilowatt system, that means in a perfect sunlight, perfect conditions, your system will be producing 3 kilowatts peak, so 3,000 watts. And that means if, like, let's say on the 21st of June, sun directly over the panels, and for 1 hour, that system will then produce 3 kilowatts over an hour, 3 kilowatt hours, that's 3 units of electricity. So your system will produce, in this case, maximum 3 units of electricity per hour. Okay. Now we look at some of the figures and kind of typical production and usage on a monthly and on a weekly basis as well later on. Okay. Okay, that's the panels. The second thing is the inverter, because they are the two major components. The solar panels that generates the electricity, and then the inverter is the brains. This is the box that will take the electricity, which is the DC, direct current, that comes from the panels, and will convert it to AC. The AC is what we get from the grid. It's what we use on our televisions, on our computers. It's what we need in the vast majority of houses. Use DC. In terms of size, okay, that picture doesn't really show you scale, but it's about the size, as I said, it's like a carry-on suitcase. About what would that be? About 60 centimeters by 35 centimeters by maybe 25, 30 centimeters deep. It's that kind of a size. It's not a very, very big piece of equipment. And typically, whether you're talking about a 3 or a 4 or a 5, the size doesn't really scale. It doesn't get that much bigger, comparing to a little bit bigger, but not that much bigger. Okay, it can be installed either inside or outside the house. And that's what connects directly into the fuse board, to the distribution board. And that's where your solar electricity will then go from your distribution board into the circuits in your house where you use it, or back out onto the grid if you're not using it at that time. Okay. Okay. Let's bang on. Okay, that's just a little graphic there showing the same thing. Panels on the roof, inverter on the wall, and the inverter connected to the distribution box, which is your connection to the grid as well, okay? This presentation, I'll be sending this out to you afterwards as well, okay? So you'll have all this stuff. Now, first question, how do I decide what size photovoltaic installation I need? Now, actually, now that I'm looking at this bit, I'm going to just skip on quickly to, yeah, this is the results of what people had said. I'd asked the question in the last version of the form, if people had an idea what size of installation they'd be looking for. And we can see the biggest group there are the not sure yet, which is obviously, obviously fine. To be definite is difficult on these things. But we do have a good proportion of people who are saying that they want a 4 kilowatt system. Now, for the 4 kilowatt system, 22%, these numbers is, I think it's about 47, I think 47, 48 people replied. So they're just to give you an idea. The 3 kilowatt system as well may require batteries. If you want to get a grant from SEI, if you're in a grant situation, if you go over 2 kilowatts, SEI will request that you install a battery. The goal for SEI is that you use as much of the electricity yourself. And the bigger your electricity, the bigger your installation, the harder it is to match up in real time the usage of that electricity. So the battery allows you to do, to store the electricity and use it at a different time. And then we've got, okay, 17%, a bunch of people, which was that about 9 people, bigger than 4 kilowatts. That's interesting. We obviously see people who have a larger energy load. If you have an EV, for example, that you could charge up during the day, if you're working from home during the day, depending on the kind of activity that you have, bigger than 4 kilowatts, why not? And then the not sure yet. I suppose maybe tonight we'll maybe get a bit of advance on the not sure yet to make things a little bit clearer. Okay, so back to here. Okay, how do I decide what size? First question is, how much electricity do you use? That's I had a couple of people get in touch with me over the last few days. It seems to be quite common. People are using around 4,500 units, 5,000 units yearly. Okay, officially, the official figures from the regulator is that it's an average of 4,200 units per domestic installation in Ireland, but that includes apartments as well. So I think if you're living in a house, it's not surprising that you're above the 4,200. Okay. The best way to look at that is to look at your electricity bill. I think, well, depending on the location, but probably if every 2 or 3 bills, you'll see there'll be a meter reading. Which should give you the real your real usage over the course of the year. So that's important. If you're a very if you're just on the a low electricity user, then you're obviously not going to go for a big system. If you're a very, very big electricity user, for whatever reason, like I say, the EV, heat pumps. Now, heat pumps is a specific case, but some other reason within your house where you're using quite a lot of electricity, then that could be a reason for potentially putting in a bigger installation. Okay, now one thing, the second thing I'm saying there, I do like to kind of a word of realism in that I wouldn't recommend that people try to go for 100% of their electricity usage from photovoltaics. Like I say, it's the Goldilocks thing. I think don't make it too big, don't make it too small. Try and get the size that's just the right size for you. I would say don't go for 100%. In reality, I think if you balance off in terms of, okay, the desire to produce your own electricity in a cost-effective way, because that's one of the variables as well, without it without costing too much, I would say if we can go for 50, 60 percent of your electricity produced from photovoltaics, I think that's a great result. Going for 100% always adds in extra cost, which is not, the cost per unit that you're going to generate increases as you put in bigger systems. As you're going for that 100%. Okay, so I would just a kind of a note of realism. We don't go for the 100%. The last issue there, yeah, bigger, obviously more expensive. So it's a question of the finances that are available to you. Starting off like the smaller systems. Now, one thing in that last slide, you may have seen that there was in the form I had said, I had asked, given people the option for 2 kilowatt systems, which is pretty much the beginning size of the installation. And nobody came in and said 2 kilowatt systems. Now, my own opinion on the 2 kilowatt systems is they're great because you're pretty much guaranteed you will use 80% of the electricity you generate. You know, the smaller the system, you don't need a battery, you don't need anything more complex, and you will use the vast majority of the electricity. It's a great starter system. You know, if you're not quite sure yourself, these systems are, you know, they can be adapted, they can change. You can add in more panels. You can buy, for example, an inverter that's slightly oversized and add in more panels in a couple of years' time once you see how your usage is going. So there's quite a bit of flexibility. And to be honest, I would recommend to people to be, you know, to not go. We're not going for the 100%. Set your aim a little bit lower, something that you know is going to work. A bit more realism and a bit more of a guarantee of a result in terms of the goal being, I suppose, to use as much of your electricity yourself as possible. Because okay, that is, you know, that's the personal responsibility for your own electricity, and also from a cost point of view, that's where it makes the most sense. Okay. Okay. Now, okay, this slide here. Now, what this is showing, it's one of the questions as well in terms of sizing, and also the discussion about batteries that comes into it. In this slide, what have we got? In the blue, this is a 3 kilowatt system. Okay, again, this is my kind of baseline of a 3 kilowatt system. It shows where the production is happening over the course of the year from January to December. And you can see at both ends, January, December, February, November. This is an installation I did in Ina. Okay, which has been going since 2014. So these are the figures from last year. So you might remember very sunny month of May. But you can see that really all the work from the electricity production point of view is happening from March to October. So if you want to use as much electricity as possible, that's good if you can match that to the amount of electricity that you're actually consuming. Now in the red, this is the typical usage. This is taken from the Commission regulators again of the CRU for your 4,200 units per year. So you can see that there are months, like for example, the month of June, July, August, September, April, we're pretty close to producing as much as you consume. And then obviously in the sunny months, particularly in the summer, May, June, July, August, you will get one of those months, cross fingers, will be better, and you will be producing more. So you would size it. That gives an idea. You shouldn't really be going for a system that will be producing more. You can see there you want to avoid that big gap between the production and the usage. Now, obviously, it's not as straightforward as looking at it on a monthly basis either, because there is also the question of when do you use the electricity? Do you use it? Is there someone at home during the day? Are you working from home? That's something that's becoming more and more common. Do you have an electric vehicle which can take the electricity during the day? If you're somebody who goes to work at 7 o'clock in the morning and there's no one at home until 7 o'clock in the evening, then you know the difficulty in using your electricity is a bit more complex. You know. Okay, so that's that idea again in terms of sizing. And now, a question that had come up, a good few questions that came over the last few weeks. People were wondering, you know, my roof is not south facing, or I don't have a sloping roof. I have a flat roof, and what is the impact on that in terms of production? Can I still put up solar panels if I have an A-frame roof east west? You know, so this is an interesting little diagram that shows the impact. Now, so what we have across the top is the orientation. Okay, orientation. So south, you're perfectly south-facing roof, and then on the left-hand side, that axis there is the inclinations. That basically means the slope. This doesn't mean if you have an inclination to get solar panels installed. It's the inclination of the roof. And typically, if we look for the number 100, there in the center. 100, that means 100%. It means perfect, and all the other numbers then are relative to that. So as the numbers decrease, that means you're slightly less efficient. But you can see there, if you go to if you look at the orientation, and if you go west or east by 45 degrees, you're only dropping down from 100% down to 94%. So the loss is not that severe at all. And likewise on the orientation, if you have let's say you have a flat roof. Now, obviously, a flat roof by design is always south facing, if you will. So if you take a flat roof going down there to 0 degrees or 10 degrees, okay, when you're at 10 degrees, even a slight slope, you're at 93% efficiency, and then to 85%. Now 85%, you can see that you really have to go way to the east or way to the west before you go lower than 85%. So I suppose what this is what I wanted to show by this is that solar can work in lots and lots of different situations. And also, a particularly interesting thing there is depending on your usage. If you are a heavy evening user or a heavy morning user, if you have a west-facing roof or slightly west-facing roof, that's better for all the electricity for energy usage in the evening. Okay, so there's a couple of factors to bring in there, but what I want to show by that is that in general it's good. You know, you can go quite a bit to the west, quite a bit to the east, and it doesn't have that big an impact. Like if we're talking about an impact of 5-6%, that's not a showstopper to my mind. Okay, now what we'd shown up there, there's a link on this slide. Okay, I'll open it up. Okay, I'll take a minute to show it. It's an online tool provided by the European Union, a research project from the European Union. And what you can do is you can go into your particular location. Can I just check that you can see that now? Because I've gone. Can someone give me a comment? Just let me know if you can see this tool on screen. Or okay, cool. So you zoom in here. So you come to your location, wherever it is. So click someplace there. It'll take your latitude, longitude. You define the slope. You define the azimuth. Now the azimuth is basically the degrees away from south. Okay, so either plus or minus a value for east or west. Now typically if it's 45 degrees west, just put in 45. You don't need to worry about the plus or minus. And then when you click on visualize results, it'll show you for your particular location what the output will be over the course of the year. Now, I should have put up a poll for this one, because this is what's funny about this is that okay, if I was to ask you where is the sunniest place in County Clare, can I see some replies there? I'm going to show you a map, which is interesting. Anyone in the discussion there? Anyone? Where is the sunniest and where is the least sunniest part of County Clare? It's sunniest. We're seeing Shannon. We've got Fenor. We've got Loophead. We've got Ina. It's a good call for Ina, but I'm afraid not exactly. Okay, not my house. Okay, so not Crusheen. Okay. Now let me show you. Let me see if I've got the map in here. I pulled out the stats from that site, and I built a map, solar map of Clare, and this is the global first presentation. Congratulations. Here's County Clare, and this sunniest part. Now, let me see. Kevin Ryan, I'm afraid you don't get a prize, but you had the correct answer. Sunniest part is down right at the tip of Loophead, 944 kilowatt hours per year. Also good news for the people up around, let me see, Doolin. Doolin is very close, a very close second, okay? It's curious, the west coast is good, and then as you move inland, it gets a little bit worse. Let me have a quick look at Newmarket and Fergus, 893, but you can see it's not a huge difference. You know, you're going from 940 down to 893, a 5% drop. Into 6 Mile Bridge, thereabouts as well. And the bad news is for the people living in Keelaloo, 857 kilowatt hours per year. Now, I don't know if we can blame their neighbours in Tipperary are stealing the electricity. I'm not sure, but that's the way it goes. So West Coast is the best, and then as you move inlands for County Clare, it gets a little bit worse. But you're still, 857 kilowatt hours per year. That's an example for 1 kilowatt installation. So if you've got 3 kilowatts, you'd multiply that by 3. It's still, and that does include efficiency losses. So it's still a good result. Okay, now back to my presentation, if I can find it. Okay, next thing that I want to talk about, that's the last thing we'll do about the sizing. There probably will be questions about that, okay? Next thing, qualifying for grants. Grants is obviously the SEI give good grants. There are some conditions to be eligible for the grants, okay? That's just the way it is. One of the conditions is the BER rating. Now, BER is this certificate. Now, from the polls, I can see that the majority, let me see, who had the BER rating? Who had a BER cert? Okay, yeah, it's kind of, okay, nearly half people didn't already. 37% did already, and then a bunch of others just didn't answer that one. But The purpose of the BER is it's an energy rating for your house. You know, you get ranked from an A down to a G, the least inefficient a G and the most efficient an A1. For the purpose of the grant, after the solar installation, your house needs to have a BER rating of C. So you can see where I put the second black mark there between the D1 and the C3. That's where you need to be. You need to be, so basically at 225, that's the number. What that number means is that from an energy perspective, every meter squared in your house needs that many kilowatt hours of energy per year to maintain it at an acceptable temperature. Okay, so for those of you now, I'll do a poll at the in the end, okay, just to see for those who have their BER if they know what they're at already. Typically what we do about the BER is if you don't have a BER, then get in touch with someone who's going to do the assessment. They can even come and do the assessment, but what we say is that they wouldn't publish the assessment until after the installation, because it does need to be confirmed by a BER cert after the installation. So they can do the assessment. After the installation is done, then they can update it to include the solar PV, because it does make an improvement to your BER rating to have a solar PV panel installed. The figures I've seen are that a 3 kilowatt system on a typical house, now this is about, I think a typical house they were talking about a 110 or 120 square meter house, something like that. It improves it by a figure of about 35 to 40. Now that's not a hard and fast figure, okay? But you can see that, for example, if you're in a D2 BER, let's say your BER rating is 260, you do a photovoltaic installation, it improves it by 35 or 40, it brings you down to the threshold of the 225. So that could just get you over the line so that you become, instead of being a D2, you're now a C3. And that is where you need to be in order to qualify for the grant. Just from a cost perspective, now that's, I suppose, the starting price for a BER would be around about 250. You will get different quotes depending on the size of your house, depending on the complexity of the build, if there's lots of extensions, different kinds of things, okay? So that's the BER side of things. The second condition is the house must have been built and occupied. Now, when it says occupied, that means the electricity meter installed before the 1st of January 2011. So if your house was built after 2011, sorry, if it was occupied after the 1st of January 2011, then you won't qualify for the grants, because they consider that building regulations from that point, your house should be energy efficient. Now, again, just to show, okay, there we go. When was your house built and occupied? Now, of the 47, whatever people that answered, 77%, so more than 30 something of you are living in houses built before 2011. So you've got that qualification is okay. We have just under 10%, 8 or 9 people, sorry, under 20%, who are in houses that are more recent than 2011. Now, I do consider that from a bulk buy, from a group like a Solar Meitheal point of view, we can still do a group for houses that were built after 2011. There are still, in some ways, it's a little bit more flexible, but we can definitely, I would say, if we get 10 people that are interested in going ahead for more recent houses, getting a solar, getting an installation done, we can still find a way to do a cost-effective installation. I suppose one of the factors is if you're not going for the SAI grants, what makes it still feasible is that you can buy material directly. You can go directly to a materials provider and then find an electrician to install it, a certified electrician to install it, and that actually does end up being a little bit cheaper than if you're going with the SAI road, where the supplier installer will provides the material and does the installation as well. Okay, that's just a fact of the way the business works. Okay, so that is the BER thing. So if you think, what I'll say to you realistically, if your house is an E1 or an E2 or below, then just getting the photovoltaic installation done itself will not get you to a C rating or above. Okay, now, again, in terms of improving your BER, photovoltaics are not the best way to improve your BER. Definitely energy efficiency is the way to go if you want to improve your BER. So I would say, like, if you're in a house that's got a BER rating of F, then there's a lot you can do in your house that will improve your BER rating before you should think about your photovoltaics. And in terms of, again, the question of payback or bang for a buck, insulation is the way to go. Energy efficiency, energy management, far better return on your money than photovoltaics. That's just the reality of it. Now, the SEI do lots of grants. You can apply for grants for getting internal insulation, attic insulation, external insulation, heating controls, windows and doors, no. Ventilation systems, ventilation control. There are a lot of grants available, either as individuals on the SEI website or also through the sustainable energy communities. I think, Gloria, did I see? Yes, Gloria, I saw that you were there. Gloria Callan, who is here tonight now, she was also at the webinar on the 25th. She is the Sustainable Energy Community Mentor. So she works with the different groups who have been set up around the county. I think we have 15 around the county at the moment. And they, that's basically the idea of working as a community, working as a group to organize. It's kind of like the solar Meitheal, but specifically starting with energy and efficiency. So from the point of view, if you're kind of off the chart or lower down the scale there on your BR side of things, then sustainable energy communities, SEI grants, energy efficiency, insulation, that's the way to go first of all. And then the photovoltaics is kind of the cherry, the icing on the cake, it's just a fact. And that's the reason, I suppose, why SEI put in that kind of a stipulation, is because they're investing in improving the energy efficiency of housing stock all over the country. So they know the best way to do that is to get your heating and your energy usage down first of all, and then think about renewable energy sources. Okay, so that's now. I hope that isn't bad news for people, but as I said, well, the good news is if it doesn't suit from BR point of view, then there's lots of other grants you can avail of and lots of other things you can do through SEAI and through the sustainable energy communities. And then if you're borderline, if you're a D1 or a D2, well then maybe the photovoltaics will just be enough to get you over the line to do that. And if you're already above C or better, then there you go. You already qualify for that. Now there's a second line I've put in there. I'll talk about that in a while. Okay, just to explain what that's about. Now skip on. Yes, the feed-in tariff. This is one thing. There was a consultation finished on the 18th of February, where the government is going to bring in a feed-in tariff. Now, feed-in tariff basically means that as a producer of renewable electricity, any electricity that it's referred to as spilling it onto the grid. If you're not going to use it yourself, then it's like an overfull, your cup is overflowing and it spills out onto the grid. At the moment, you can't get paid. You don't get paid for the electricity that spills onto the grid. The feed-in tariff will bring in payment for that on a broad, like for the full country for the first time. Now, it's a good start, definitely. And I know for a fact that what's coming in July is going to be considered the first step, and that there will be further down the line, within 18 months, there'll be a second phase coming in as well. Now, we don't know exactly yet what the story is, but judging the common consensus, loose consensus, and we'll have confirmation of this for the end of April, is that, okay, the tariff, which the payment will be split into two parts. There'll be what's called the Clean Energy Guarantee, and that's going to be for any renewable energy installation, existing or new, and that will be about 50% of the tariff, which would probably be about 5 cents, because basically what they're targeting that at paying what it would have cost a generator to generate the electricity by some other means. So the average cost of generation. Okay, and then the other half of the tariff will be the clean energy premium. Now, going on what was in the consultation, and again, this is not a guarantee, but the 2 points that come after that is the probability. For the clean energy premium, which will be maybe another 5 cents per unit, there will be a condition for your BR rating. In the consultation, they talked about a B2. So that's what we're talking about there later, earlier on. Your B2, you see your B2, you're talking about a house that is twice as efficient from an energy perspective as a C3. So there may be a condition in there, meaning that, the fact is, the vast majority of houses are not a B2 or less. So that may be the clean energy premium may not be accessible to everybody. Second point is that you cannot stick up a shed load of panels basically beside your house and think you're going to get paid for all of the electricity that you put onto the grid. They're going to limit it to a certain percentage of the production. The idea being to put the emphasis on self-consumption, which is the best for yourself as well. So they put in an idea of 30%, a maximum of 30% of what you produce on an annual basis can be paid. As I said, to encourage self-consumption. Now, just to give a quick calculation there for my favorite 3 kilowatt system as well. Let's say you have a 3 kilowatt system, and let's say you do spill 30% of it onto the grid and you want to get paid for it. So that'd be roughly 900 units being exported to the grid every year. 900 units, if you're getting paid the full whack, which I think will be around about the 10 cents, that's a question of 90 euros per year of a payment. Okay, now I think just my vision on that is that's not a showstopper. That there may be reasons to say, okay, let's not worry about or wait and see too much for those kind of that kind of a difference on a yearly basis, and particularly the second part, which is the BER rating. That's half of that payment. So even if you don't make the BER B2, you should still qualify for the clean energy guarantee. So you'll be getting 45 euros a year instead of 90 euros a year. It's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a showstopper. Okay, but like I say, that'll be the end of April before we get the information there. Now, I had a question in there from Shane Fell. Shane, we're at a B1. Do we still qualify if we improve to an A3? No, you're absolutely spot on. You're a B1 already, so you qualify already. You don't need to do anything. There won't be if you have your BR saying that you're at a B1, you won't need to get anything done again on top of that. There's no, like, it's not to be at a C, it's to be C or better, and you already are better. And your photovoltaic installation will improve your BER marginally. Like if you're at a B1, you're at 75. Yeah, so photovoltaic will bring it down to an A3 or an A2, something in that line. Okay. Now, okay, next steps. This is the last thing, and I'm sorry, I'm talking on a bit too long. Okay, the next steps. Now, what I'm looking for from this is the Meitheal concept, to create groups of minimum 10 people and maximum 20. The reason I say minimum 10 is the idea of the Meitheal is that outside of the fact that we kind of work as a group, and there's a kind of a dynamic with the group, there's also the fact that the idea is that we will go to tender. Now, it's not a public tender because this is just a group of private individuals. Okay, so but we will go through a tendering process with a number of photovoltaic installers and suppliers. And in order to negotiate, to the idea being that we'll get a reduction in price, we'll be able to negotiate a lower price. And we need to have a certain kind of minimum critical mass before you can ask somebody for a reduction. So I think 10 is a reasonable, it's a reasonable amount for a minimum amount. And then max of 20, because then it just becomes a little bit unwieldy to manage even the follow-up for that beyond 20. Now, how I would see, this is just my suggestions now on how we would create the ideal group. First thing is situation vis-a-vis the SAI grants. The people who can qualify for the SAI grants will be in their groups, and the people who cannot will be in other groups. I think it will be a fundamentally different approach, different suppliers, different installers, perhaps. So that's one thing I'll be keeping in mind. The second criteria will be trying to make groups where everybody has more or less the same type of installation. In size, as in if we can go with 10 people who all want a 4 kilowatt system with the same size battery, it makes it much easier to negotiate. And from the supplier point of view, they need to get one type of panel, one type of inverter, and bingo, it's easier for them than to at that scale, same material, we'll have a better chance at reducing prices. Third criteria, the same calendar. Some people want to do it quickly. Some people want to do it, are not in a rush. Let me see, where's my numbers here? Size of installation. Okay, when do you want it to happen? 40% of people said, let's go straight away. Which is, so those people obviously would be in a group. And then 34%, that's 1/3, which is 15, 16 people. Thinking about financing, because there is a cost, obviously, even outside of the grants situation. Now, let me see. I think the figures I talked about the last time, before grants, you would talk about 2,000 to 2,500 euros per kilowatt for the first 2 kilowatts that you'd install. The idea being that if you talk about a 2 kilowatt system, after taking away your grants and all that cost would come down to about 1,600 euros, 1,700 euros per kilowatt installed. As you go bigger, then you don't multiply by the same 1,600, because each kilowatt you add on beyond that becomes progressively cheaper, because basically your installer is already on the roof, he already has the scaffolding up, the man is on site. Those kind of costs are already taken into account, and it doesn't take a lot longer to install a 4 kilowatt system than a 2 kilowatt system. Okay, so where do we go? And then it's the same region. Like ideally, if you had 10 people in a parish who all wanted it, that'd be great. it'd be good buzz, and that's one of the reasons for doing the Meitheal as well, is to get people, you can go around and see the installations in your neighbors, see how things are progressing and that, So that's how we're going to be working out. And I'm taking now the decision on when the groups are going to happen is going to be happening over the next couple of weeks. I'll be communicating with you again by email. I'll be getting in touch as well, because there are a lot of people who are not here tonight who have expressed an interest. And also at the same time, I'll say to yourselves, if you're speaking to your neighbors or your family and who might be interested in this, you have the link to the form, get them to put in their details. Like I said, okay, the more the merrier. Obviously, I don't think I'll be able to handle 1,000 people coming in, but if we can get it in groups of 10 to 20, and then we can roll them out one by one, over the course of the year. Okay, now the last point there, a question that I've been asked quite a bit this week, is just to understand from the Clare Community Energy Agency how this works out, and how, if there is a fee involved for organising the solar Meitheal. Okay, now all of the information, the webinars, and any emails you send me, or any information that I'm putting up on the website, that's all public. Okay, when it gets to the stage of creating the group, because we do need a certain commitment as well, that when people sign up to become to go into a group, they accept this size, this region, this time scale, then I'm asking for a deposit of 150 euros. Okay, but at that point, when you pay that, it should be very clear what size, when you want the installation to take place. Okay, that deposit then, once the installation goes through, we find an installer, he does the installation. The idea at the end of that is that I kind of circle back with the installer as well to verify things, and then that becomes the fee for the circuit, for the agency. Okay, 150 euros. Now, if at any point up to that the installation doesn't happen, even if you're in a group and then something, for whatever reason, you don't do it, the deposit goes back. It's a no fault, no fee kind of a thing. Now, I did say to somebody who asked me that question, I said, this is the point where I'm going to look at the number of participants and see if the number drops drastically in the next 5 seconds, to see if that's considered to be a little bit off the game. But that's how I see as a kind of a sustainable model for that. Okay, 38, 38, 38. Okay, it seems stable, not as shocking then. That's good. Okay, now let me see. We've gotten to the end of the presentation side of things. Okay, now questions. Okay, is there something that you wanted me to cover, or some other questions you have that you want? Now you can put either in the questions and answers, because then other people can comment on that directly, or in the discussion. I'm like in the chat. I'm watching this. I'm watching both of them, so you can, any information you need, you can stick that in. Stick it in there directly. Okay, any questions? Okay, somebody has solar thermal panels. Okay, and considering installing photovoltaics as well, right? Now, just okay, Steve, should I replace the hot water ones? I would say no. Solar thermal is a very solid technology. If it's working properly, I would say leave it. There's no need to, replacing things. That's an additional cost, and they are two different needs. Like your solar electricity that you generate. Now, I know there is an option in installations that you can put in. You can change the element in your immersion. It's called a diverter, so that any electricity that you're not using, let's say during the course of the day, can be diverted to heat your water. And basically, it's a variable heater in your immersion, which gets switched on whenever the inverter tweaks or notices that you're not using the electricity that's being produced. If you already have panels, they're already producing hot water. I would say that avoids the need for. I wouldn't think then about having a diverter to because it's at the same time. The day you're getting hot water from your panels will be from your thermal panels will be the day you're producing electricity as well. And a thermal panel that works is very good. So I personally, I wouldn't recommend replacing the solar thermal panels. Okay, now Ava Hegarty. We have 5 Velux windows on our south-facing roof. Now, is that a question of space then? How you would fit the panels on the roof? Now, obviously, each of the panels has a certain space. It's not a problem. Now, what it will mean is that maybe, you could see typically if the five are on a line, and if there's a space above the panels between the Velux and the apex of your roof, you could just have one long string of panels going the full width of the house, or maybe below the windows as well, or there may be just beside. An installer can work it out. It doesn't need to be one rectangle. It's a question of cabling between the different installations. Now, obviously, they'd prefer to reduce the amount of cabling on the roof to a maximum, but it's not a problem. It's a question of having, okay, let's take the extreme situation. You wouldn't have the 20 panels, or sorry, the let's say the 10 panels dotted in 10 locations around the roof, but you could group some of them together again, okay? Okay, now David Foodie, would you think that a chosen installer would advise what you would require, 3 kilowatt or 4 kilowatt, etc.? Absolutely, every installer is going to have an opinion himself on what you think, on what he thinks you need, but he'll be asking you the same questions, I think, as I'm asking you there this evening. So it really does come down. The best person to know about the size of the installation is you, with having gotten the right information or the right kind of advice. In general, from what I've seen, installers, there aren't that many cowboys out there who will try and sell you like a 6 kilowatt system when you only needed 3. That doesn't happen that much. But I think, and that's one of the reasons for the Solar Meitheal project is, in creating groups and in this discussion to try and come to you'll get the information where you can decide yourself what you think is the right size, and you'll be happy with that decision. Okay, now, Ian Sutton, do you expect the bulk buying savings to be greater than €150 versus going direct to the suppliers, assuming the 3 kilowatt system? Okay, a 3 kilowatt hour system. I'll tell you what I'm presuming. I'm presuming that going in bulk as a group of 10, I'm presuming you would get a minimum of 5% discount and possibly more. Now, so if you're talking about a 3 kilowatt hour system, that would cost you, we're talking before grants, okay? That would cost you in the region of, or even after grants, let's say €4,500. 4,500, we'll do the calculation, €4,500. 1% is 45, so 150 would be 3%. Okay, so that we'll call this the project management fee, would be less than the reduction that I'm presuming we're going to get from the suppliers. Now, when we go out to the suppliers getting prices, it won't just be a kind of a closed auction as such. Like, I think each of the groups the idea would be that we'll review the prices that come in together, and we'll go back, either questions, technical questions, and also renegotiating a price. It's not just somebody giving a price made in stone. We'll go beyond that again. So I would definitely consider that the project management fee will be covered by the reduction that we're going to get from the suppliers. But it's a fair question. I think. Oh, sorry, there's more questions here. Will you have support on managing the metals should you not be available if I fall off my bicycle? Changing circumstances. At the moment, the Clare Community Energy Agency is this is it. In between these headphones. So changing circumstances. Okay, now this is my project going forward. It began in the month of February, so I'm not going to. It's not something I'm going to drop in the short term. Okay. So, and any information that I provide, all the information is provided freely, okay? Okay, Kevin Ryan, how much of a saving by going with the group approach do you anticipate? Again, that's going back to the same question for me, and I would say a minimum 5% from the suppliers, and then to go beyond that. Okay, Jean, more questions about the BER ratings. Can you recommend someone to provide a BER rating and also the same BER assessed to the rating for all the groups? Okay, now I don't have a recommendation. Now I can all of the BER assessors are available on the SCI website. I'm making up the SCI, the way they provide their data. They've got a bunch of different, whether it's their installers or their BER assessors or their technical advisors for heat pumps. all of the information is out there. It's not very well presented, I find, particularly if you want to, if you're living in County Clare, it would make more sense that you're not looking for a BR assessor from Antrim. So I am building just a list of data for the different, be it the solar suppliers or also the BR assessors, and I'll provide that to you. Okay, the BR assessors who are considered to be Clare-based or Limerick or South Galway, that kind of thing. Because if you're in Scariff, North Tipperary as well, that kind of thing. It's obviously not. It's not strictly stopping at the borders. Okay. The same BR assessors do the ratings for all groups. It's something that we could potentially look into. Yeah. Now, judging by the feedback that we've gotten there'll be a group of people who already have their BR assessments done. Now, for them, it may be more feasible or cost effective to go back to the same assessor and say, okay, you did my assessment last year. I'm making this one change to it. And then to look for a modification of the BR without necessarily going back for the full whack. I'm not sure what the possibility is on that, but in one way it would make sense to if we can get a bunch of assessors. Now again, the BR assessors, like the cost I had there, your kind of starter cost is about €250. The goal of the Meitheal, I probably wouldn't be looking to negotiate a group price with the BR assessors, because the goal is not to squeeze people either. It's not a huge amount of money for what they do. They do have their costs, and they have, I don't think if someone came with was proposing €500 for a BR assessment, I'd have no qualms whatsoever with negotiating that down. But I think, if the price is correct, then but like, I'm not at all against the idea that a group could decide to use a single BR assessor. And okay, it's good in the sense that assessor then is very familiar with how the impact that the solar panels have on all of the houses. We don't have to go explaining things 10 times. Okay, now we have another question from Shane. Question on the mechanics of fitting the panels. Are the panels mounted on a frame that is drilled through the slates, battens, etc.? We also have a flat roof area. Okay, now typically the panels go down onto an aluminium frame, those kind of aluminium profiles. They get bolted onto the aluminium profiles. And then the aluminium profiles will be fixed to the timber of your roof. So depending on whether it's slate, there's different kinds of fittings that are used to make sure that there's no risk of water getting in, or if it's going under tiles, it's easier again. Like, there are different mounting systems depending on your roof type. Obviously the question of waterproofing, there's no random drilling being done through membranes or through your felt. It's any place that where there is the where it's bolted onto the frame will be done under the tile, and then will be covered over again to make sure that there's no risk of rain getting in when it's done properly. And there's no reason why that's obviously something that we'd be checking out with the installers. I don't think, I suppose one thing to look at there is any installer who'll be providing coming in for tender would probably need, if we're going for a group of 10, 20 people, would probably need to provide some kind of references of installations that would have been done preferably locally, so you could actually contact the person to see if they were happy with the quality of work. Flat roof area, worried about leaks here. Okay, yeah, and a flat roof in general, you never go near, you don't go through the roof. You don't screw anything into the roof. Typically that's ballast. You'd put a frame in place. The frame would be on, you'd spread the load over the surface, ballast that down, and then cable it down from there. Like, avoid at all costs drilling through a flat roof or screwing something into a flat roof. Okay, let me see. Caroline Houston, let me see what else is here. If you have space for it, more expensive to have the mount on the ground. And Geraldine. Okay, let me go through these one by one. Caroline Houston, ballpark figures for each size installation and the maximum grant available. Now the grants, let me show you the figures for the grants, all right? They were on the slide from the last presentation. When I'll send out an email after this with the link, okay, and I'll also send out a link to the previous presentation as well, so you can see. Okay, come on, Google. Where are my questions gone? Okay, so in this page for the grants, it's the best grants are for the smallest systems. Okay, that's a given. 900 euros per kilowatt for the first 2 kilowatts installed. And then once you go beyond 2 kilowatts, if you go to 3 kilowatts, you get another 300 for the third kilowatt. You get another 300 for the fourth kilowatt. But then if you go to the 3 or 4, you'll need a battery. And there is a grant specifically for the battery. And now the battery is a 600 euro grant, whether you have a 2.5 kilowatt hour battery or a 20 kilowatt hour battery. That doesn't go up in scale. Okay, so they're the grants that are available. There's a link in there for to the SCI webpage as well. In terms of ballpark figures, yeah, like okay, I had it on this slide as well, actually. This is going specifically, we had an example here quoted, this is before grants, a 2.2 kilowatt system. I saw a number of quotes in around this kind of area, around 5,500 euros. Similarly, for a 6.6 kilowatt system, 3 times the size, 9,800 euros. So you're tripling the size of the system, you're not even doubling the cost of the system. Okay, that's a kind of a given. As I said before, as you increase the size, the price won't increase proportionally. What will change, of course, is the grant that you're getting. You will get a higher grant for your 2.2 kilowatt system proportionally than what you'll get for your 6.6. But that's the reason why the grants are structured that way, because SEI knows that your costs are coming down as your installation gets bigger, so there's less of a need to have a grant in that case. So there's a kind of a logic to that. Okay, Jason Horner, if you have space, is it much more expensive to have panels mounted on the ground? I would say less expensive. In terms of the installation, like you've no need for scaffolding, you've no need for now the only thing the other question you might have is running the cable. There may be some costs, if underground cable that would need to be dug up. I don't have any costs on that. There's kind of for and against. Like there's no question if you were going with if you're in a non-grant situation, if you had ground close to your house for running a cable, if you're happy to dig that trench yourself to run the cable underground, then I would say it would come in less expensive. It won't be radically less expensive. Okay, we're not talking like dropping in half. But you can absolutely mount them on the ground. Now, obviously, ideally tilting on, you can buy the aluminium profiles to do that kind of thing. I saw a solar farm just a couple of weeks ago where the frame of the solar panels, the support is done with timber. It's actually like a green timber cut down and which was pretty cute. Okay, Geraldine, now say you want to do more upgrading than just the panels. How does that affect the grants and the BER increasing due to the sum of the improvements? Okay, if done together or if not at the same time. We can consider that the grants for the photovoltaics are separate from the other grants. Let me see if I can get the link. I'll get the link to the SCI website that talks about the different grants that are available. If you get grants for photovoltaics, it doesn't have any impact on the grants that you can get for doing any other energy efficiency. Okay, so you can really, it doesn't, by doing the energy efficiency first, it's not taking away your possibility to get the grant later on. So let me show you home grants overview. Okay, so each individual one of those, if you go in there, it'll give you the grants that are available for installation. So you can see you've got all the figures show up there. So let me just give you that. Let me give you that page. Home energy grants. So I'm going to put that up there in the chat. Okay. Okay, for the grants. Now, actually, while we're at it, and since we're here, let me also show you community energy, sustainable energy communities. This is what I was talking about, where kind of, I suppose, on the Meitheal idea, but it's more typically being done in a village or a town or a kind of a community. and this is where Gloria Callan, this is all structured through the SCAI. So that, let me see. Yeah, okay, let me give you that. That's the SECs. If you do want to get involved in kind of group buying, and that the structure of that project is very good. So there's the sustainable energy communities, okay? Now, without the SCI grant, the payback duration will be dramatically increased. Will this be financially viable? Niall McGrath. Okay, fair question. Let's take the most extreme case where you're going for an SCI, you're not going for an SCI grant. In the most extreme case, the cheapest installation you could do is that you could buy the material yourself. You could install it yourself. You could have an electrician come and make sure there was nothing crazy that was done. If you're not looking for if you're not looking to be paid by the Feed In Tariff, and if you're just happy to do an installation yourself, you could do that. And that is the cheapest way of getting solar in Ireland, is to buy directly from the from suppliers. There are some wholesale suppliers in Ireland. You can buy directly from them and install yourself, and obviously get it verified by an electrician before you go live. So financially viable. Now that's not something, from the Meitheal point of view, that's not something we'll be doing, because that's getting into a trickier situation in terms of just taking responsibility of people when people do their own installation. But I know people who have done it. I know it's doable. In every case, always verified by an electrician afterwards. But I would nearly go as far as to say, if you can do it yourself, it's possibly the cheapest way to get photovoltaics in Ireland at the moment, outside of the grants. Okay, but that's something. I suppose it's a different line. Okay. Now, how do we select installers to contact? Joe Burns. Well, the idea is we're going to, once we create the groups, then we'll go, there are 165 suppliers, installers in Ireland. And then we'll decide as a group whether we want to go nationwide or whether we want to stick to installers in Clare, Limerick, Galway, Tipperary, Kerry, that kind of thing, or whether we want to give priority to installers within the county. The groups will decide. Okay, how we'll go on from that. I have all the data. It's also on the SCA website, but we have all the information about who the suppliers are. The suppliers installers have to be certified by SCAI. It's not just an electrician cannot just decide he's going to become a photovoltaic installer. There is some training requirements there. Okay, so that will be done as a group. That's part of the group. Okay. As regards selecting installers from a sustainability perspective, is there any consideration for the manufacturing source of the panels? Absolutely. The idea is the group will decide what the criteria are. We'll go out to the market with our list of questions, saying answer these questions. Sustainability perspective, absolutely. There is one of the like I've seen projects before where, from a cost point of view, you can get panels that are produced typically in Eastern Europe at prices that are not, we're talking like a 5-10% difference in price just for the panels, difference between Chinese panels and European panels. It's not a major showstopper as far as I'm concerned, in terms of that, going for panels that are produced within the European Union as opposed to panels from China or India doesn't make a massive difference to the price. So it is absolutely a question that can be brought in. Again, that's on a group basis. If there's a group that comes together and says, we only want to source from EU inverters, solar panels, absolutely, that's no problem there. Okay, from the information that you've already gotten from people, what's my level of confidence for successfully creating matching groups? Okay, I suppose, to be realistic, like I talked about the 4 criteria that were there. Where's my slides gone? Let me find my slide. Okay, where are my groups? Same situation vis-a-vis SCA grants, type of installation, calendar, region. The first one, I don't think we'll be able to mix people who are not going for the grants and people that are going for the grants. I think it's a fundamentally different. So there will be, starting off with a group, and as from a numbers point of view, we're very close to 10 already of those who are not going for SCI grants or would not qualify. And then the majority then otherwise, I think we're definitely, my goal at the beginning is to at least get one group of each, and then we roll on from there. The other 3 criteria, same type of installation, same calendar, same region. Well, definitely same type of installation, same region we can go soft on those criteria. We're working in County Clare. We don't necessarily have to have a group that's just in Scariff or in Loophead. I think we can go a little bit beyond that. Again, same type of installation. If there are people going for a 3 kilowatt installation with a battery and 4 kilowatts with a battery, it doesn't have to be exactly the same either. What I just want to avoid is kind of radical differences. Like, as in, if I see 10 people in the county who are all going for a 2 kilowatt system, then that's a group, from an SCI grant perspective. That would be a good group, because then you can go with a very simple order to your suppliers. Okay, let me see. And the timing is another thing. There are people who want to go ahead straight away. There are people who, maybe for financing reasons or for other reasons, some people have got in touch with me. They're in the middle of doing a kind of a rebuild, and so they won't be ready for another 6 months or something like that. So that's, if there are people at the end of the year, then obviously we can't mess with it. We can't change time. But I would definitely say we'll split between people who are going for the grants, will qualify for the grants, people who don't, and then we'll bring together, if necessary, different types of installations and different regions. The goal being, as in, if we need to make it be a little bit more flexible on that to get a group going, I think it's more important to get the groups going as well. Okay, now we've hit we've just gone past 9 o'clock. Okay, I think. Will there be a group for supply of equipment only? Supply of equipment only. Now, this is a question. We can discuss it now. Okay. I'm quite happy to give out the information. The as a group, I suppose. From my point of view, I suppose that the agency wouldn't be involved in that, because that's really, okay. If a group of people, I'll provide information about suppliers. You can then go to those suppliers, get your prices. You take care of the installation yourself. There's no role for me in that. After that, so it's probably not something that. But if I see there's a lot of interest in there, I'm quite happy to share that, so that people can get in touch and kind of run. Like I say, I'll provide information about who the suppliers are, and then. If we can put people in touch and they want to go off together and do a bulk buy, that's absolutely fine. Now, okay, I think now we'd said an hour. The idea was, okay, we did a half an hour presentation and a half an hour questions and answers. A lot of good questions. Did I see something moving there? Okay, Steve. Yeah, people have to leave. Geraldine. Yeah, no problem. So, okay, I think that's it. Now, like I say, I'll be getting back in touch with you about this. I'm going to be reaching out to the other people who weren't able to make it tonight. Also, like, I'll be asking you from the Meitheal perspective, if you talk to people who think this is an interesting idea and would be interested, tell them to get in touch, give them the link to the form, and then we'll start building the groups. That's the next thing, is to start building the groups. Okay, so I would expect that within 2 weeks, I'll be coming back to you after this immediately, just to give you the recording of that, and then within 2 weeks we should be looking at seeing the shape of the first groups, and going on from there, and then by the end of April we should have the information about the about the feed-in tariff, which I think again is not a showstopper. So by the end of April, early May, we should be in a position to start getting out there looking for quotes and that kind of thing for the first groups. Okay, we'll ask another question there. Okay, Joe. All right. Thanks for joining in. Knowing an EV, how much needed for charging it? Yeah. Okay. An EV, typically EV, if you drive 100 kilometers, it takes 15 units of electricity in or around that. Okay. So if you're driving 10,000 kilometers a year, multiply that by 100, that's 1,500 units of electricity. Okay, 1,500 units of electricity you will generate with a 2 kilowatt system. So you could look at it that way. For 10,000 kilometers in an EV, a 2 kilowatt system would cover your needs for the year. That's kind of, now obviously different models will use more or less electricity. But that's pretty much a ballpark kind of figure. EVs use in or around 15 units per 100 kilometers. Okay, listen, I think if there are no more questions, then we'll stop it for tonight. I'll get the recording out to you. We'll get the questions out there as well, and we'll take it on from there. Okay. And again, like I've had quite a few people contact me by email. Go ahead, if you have questions, you can always come back in by email. I probably will build, going on the questions I'm getting, a kind of a frequently asked questions list and put it up on the website. The website which is not exactly Google standard yet is this one. Boom, boom, boom. That's the website address. So for example, information about the installers, information about the BER assessors, that will all be going up on the website there, okay? And also the frequency asked questions will be going up there as well. Okay, so let's leave it at that then. Listen, thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the questions, and I'm looking forward to taking it on to the next stage, actually getting these things done as we come into the summer, because we're hitting we're hitting the time where this is where the electricity is being generated. So it's better to get it done now rather than getting them done in October. So I'm looking forward to getting that done with you. All right. Okay. So take care, everybody. Thank you very much.